Omagyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Dandavat pranams to all the assembled Vaishnavas, and we are continuing with our reading and discussion of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is primarily discussing the glories and the teachings of Prahlād Maharaj. And so we are in chapter 1 still of the 7th canto, and we've reached verse 25. And the previous verse was discussing this idea of duality, the perception of the being under the influence of the dualities of this world, and perceiving such things as friends and enemies as a result of our egoistic conception of life. This was where we left off. And I believe, yes, Narada is speaking to Yudhisthira Maharaj in the midst of the Rajasuya sacrifice, right? And Yudhisthira Maharaj asked this question, right, about how it was that demons who are killed by the Lord, they, instead of going to hell or being punished as you might expect, they actually merge into the body of the Lord. And so Yudhisthira Maharaj has inquired about this to Narada Muni, and he is giving his reply. Maybe I'll just read these previous 2 verses just so we can refresh everything. The great sage Sri Naradaji said, "O king, blasphemy and praise, chastisement and respect are experienced because of ignorance. The body of the conditioned soul is planned by the Lord for suffering in the material world through the agency of the external energy." And then verse 24, "My dear king, the conditioned soul, being in the bodily conception of life, considers his body to be his self and considers everything in relationship with the body to be his. Because he has this wrong conception of life, he is subjected to dualities like praise and chastisement." So the perception, right, of praise, abuse, that is because of our own material ego, right? Okay, so we'll pick up with verse 25. And Suvasniji, do you want to lead us in the Sanskrit? Oh. Are you there, Didi? Or
yes.
Okay.
Was it? Maybe I was muted. I don't know. So, okay.
Okay.
Yannibaddoऽभिमानोऽयं तद्वधात् प्राणिनां वदः तथा न यस्य कैवल्यात् अभिमानोऽखिलात्मनः परस्य धमकर्तुर्हि हिंसा खेनास्य कल्प्यते.
Because of the bodily conception of life, the conditioned soul thinks that when the body is annihilated, the living being is annihilated. Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the supreme controller, the supersoul of all living entities. Because he has no material body, he has no false conception of I and mine. It is therefore incorrect to think that he feels pleasure or pain when blasphemed or offered prayers. This is impossible for him. Thus he has no enemy and no friend. When he chastises the demons, it is for their good, and when he accepts the prayers of the devotees, it is for their good. He is affected neither by prayers nor by blasphemy. Purport: because of being covered by material bodies, the conditioned souls, including even greatly learned scholars and falsely educated professors, all think that as soon as the body is finished, everything is finished. This is due to their bodily conception of life. Krishna has no such bodily conception, nor is his body different from his self. Therefore, since Krishna has no material conception of life, How can he be affected by material prayers and accusations? Krishna's body is described herewith as Kaivalya, non-different from himself. Since everyone has a material bodily conception of life, if Krishna had such a conception, what would be the difference between Krishna and the conditioned soul? Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita are accepted as final because he does not possess a material body. As soon as one has a material body, he has 4 deficiencies. But since Krishna does not possess a material body, he has no deficiencies. And those 4 deficiencies, I think everyone here knows, right? Or more or less, let's see if I can remember, the tendency to make mistakes. I don't know. Maybe Suvasti, you can say. Imperfect senses, it's another one. Yeah.
Illusions, you know.
Right,
He's
tendency to come under illusion.
and what else? It's one.
There's one more.
Tendency to cheat others.
The tendency to cheat others. That's right. Yes, yes. Yes, that's probably the worst one, right? So as soon as one has a material body, he has 4 deficiencies. But since Krishna does not possess a material body, he has no deficiencies. He is always spiritually conscious and blissful. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha. His form is eternal, blissful knowledge. Satchid Ananda Vigraha. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa and Kaivalya are the same. Krishna can expand himself as Paramatma in the core of everyone's heart. In Bhagavad Gita, this is confirmed. Kshetragyam chapimam vidi sarva kshetreshu bharata. The Lord is the Paramatma, the Atma or super self of all individual souls. Therefore, it must naturally be concluded that he has no defective bodily conceptions. Although situated in everyone's body, he has no bodily conception of life. He is always free from such conceptions, and thus he cannot be affected by anything in relation to the material body of the jiva. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tan aham dvishata kruran samsadeshu naradamam kshipam ya jashram ashubhan asodishveva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Whenever the Lord punishes persons like demons, however, such punishment is meant for the good of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, being envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, may accuse him, saying Krishna is bad, Krishna is a thief, and so on. But Krishna, being kind to all living entities, does not consider such accusations. Instead, he takes into account the conditioned soul's chanting of Krishna, Krishna so many times. He sometimes punishes such demons for one life by putting them in a lower species, but then, when they have stopped accusing him, they are liberated in the next life because of chanting Krishna's name constantly. Blaspheming the Supreme Lord or his devotee is not at all good for the conditioned soul. But Krishna, being very kind, punishes the conditioned soul in one life for such sinful activities and then takes him back home, back to Godhead. The vivid example for this is Vitrasura, who was formerly Chitraketu Maharaj, a great devotee. Because he derided Lord Shiva, the foremost of all devotees, he had to accept the body of a demon called Ritra. But then he was taken back to Godhead. Thus, when Krishna punishes a demon or conditioned soul, he stops that soul's habit of blaspheming him. And when the soul becomes completely pure, the Lord takes him back to Godhead. Okay. No comment.
Okay. Tasmad vairānubandena nirvairena bhayena va snehat kamena va yunjyat katanchin nekshate pritak.
Therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, by fear, by affection, or by lusty desire, by all of these or any one of them, if a conditioned soul somehow or other concentrates his mind upon the Lord, the result is the same. For the Lord, because of his blissful position, is never affected by enmity or friendship. So any approach, and this is something that's mentioned in many places in the scriptures, right? Any approach to the Lord will raise us up. Even if we are approaching him with negative intentions or even inimical intentions, we will get some type of promotion, some type of advancement, just because we're contacting him in one way or another. Such is the mercy of the Lord, such is the magnanimity of the Lord. And he himself is not affected, as it says here, whether someone is approaching him out of good intention or bad intention. He wants to do good for all, right? It comes down to that point. He's not personally motivated by self-centered ego. Oh, this person is my friend, this person is my enemy. He simply wants to do good for all, and he is expressing that goodness in the way that is best and most appropriate for that individual. So purport. From this verse, one should not conclude that because Krishna is unaffected by favorable prayers or unfavorable blasphemy, one should therefore blaspheme the Supreme Lord. This is not the regulative principle. Bhakti Yoga means anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. One should serve Krishna very favorably. This is the real injunction. Here it is said that although an enemy thinks of Krishna unfavorably, the Lord is unaffected by such anti-devotional service. Thus he offers his benedictions even to Shishupal and similarly inimical conditioned souls. This does not mean, however, that one should be inimical toward the Lord. The stress is given to the favorable execution of devotional service, not purposeful blasphemy of the Lord. It is said, Nindam Bhagavata Shinvams Tatparasya Janasya Va Tato Na Paiti Yasopi Yatyada Sukritakchutaha. One who hears blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees should immediately take action or should leave. Otherwise, he will be put into hellish life perpetually. And just to elaborate on this, and we can mention, right, some of the language here is, in a modern context is, the word blasphemy and all this talk of hell, in a modern context, it's a, it doesn't sit well, right, to modern sensibilities. But we can look beyond the language and see what's actually being said. And this point is actually an interesting point, right? That if we can appreciate it in a broader way, that what is the essential point here? That if we are hearing negativity, we're hearing criticism, and we are allowing that, right? We're passively participating in that. We are enabling that. And so we are also due some of the reactions of that, of such type of negative talk or criticism. So, in a very simple sense, if we really take it down to a very human level, like if someone is criticizing your friend and you're just sitting quietly and passively hearing that, that you are also participating in that. You are allowing that to go on. If your friend knew that you were engaging in that, they would be very hurt by that, right? And so it is the same thing when it comes to the Lord, and particularly, right, when it comes to the Lord and his devotees. If we are hearing criticism of the Lord and his devotees, we are also participating in that. We will also be due some of the reactions to that. And so this is the guidance that is given in the scripture, that, and we were discussing this recently, maybe yesterday even, the guidance is given that if you are in a position to correct that, then you should say something to stop such negative speech. But if you are not in that type of position, then you should leave. Just get up and leave, right? If you don't feel you can make any objection or correct that person or stop that, then just leave so you don't have to hear. And so it's actually a very deep point, which is very relevant, right? The way that it's phrased here, it may not immediately feel like that, but if we really think about the point, it's something that's very relevant in our daily lives and the way that we communicate, and how we, how, the dynamics of certain relationships that we may have, right? We're not powerless people, and we do have some, as Srila Sridhar Maharaj says in one place very nicely, we have some responsibility to our environment, right? And so sometimes it is our duty to take some action, or if we're not able to, just get up and leave, right? We should not participate in certain dynamics or talk and so on. So it is really something to think about. If we want to live a progressive life, then these are things that we have to consider and apply in our daily lives. So there are many such injunctions. Therefore, as a regulative principle, one should not be unfavorable toward the Lord, but always favorably inclined toward him. Shishupal's achievement of oneness with the Supreme Lord was different because Jai and Vijay, from the very beginning of their material existence, were ordained to treat the Supreme Lord as an enemy for 3 lives, and then return home back to Godhead. Jai and Vijay inwardly knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but they purposely became his enemies to be delivered from material life. From the very beginning of their lives, they thought of Krishna as an enemy, and even when blaspheming Lord Krishna, they chanted the holy name of Krishna constantly, along with their inimical thoughts. And we've heard some stories, right? Like when the Krishna consciousness movement was first spreading around the world, right? And how pleased our gurus were, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada, how pleased they were to hear news of some very unexpected persons, and even perhaps for the wrong reasons, taking the names of Krishna. They were still pleased to hear that, because in any case they are taking that name, right? And in particular, I remember one story we heard from Devashish Prabhu, right? That I think it was in Russia at a certain point, the president, he made this announcement that the 2 greatest enemies of Russia were American pop music and the Hare Krishnas. and Srila Sridhar Maharaj was very pleased to hear that, and he said, "Oh, but he is already done for, because he's taken the name of Krishna." So how blessed he will be, how benefited he will be, because he has taken the name of Krishna. Even if he has taken it, with some negative intention, still there is some power in that, So he was pleased to hear that, and also because, any publicity is good publicity. And so indirectly, by making that statement, the president was actually promoting the Krishna consciousness movement and drawing more attention to it. So such is the Lord's mercy. Any connection is a good connection. Jai and Vijay, no, we read that. Thus they were purified because of chanting the holy name of Krishna. It is to be understood that even a blasphemer can be freed from sinful activities by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Certainly, therefore, freedom is assured for a devotee who is always favorable to the service of the Lord. This will be clear from the following verse. By rapt attention fixed upon Krishna, one is purified, and thus one is delivered from material life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has very nicely explained the word bhayena, which means by fear. When the gopis went to Krishna in the dead of night, they certainly feared chastisement by their relatives, their husbands, brothers, and fathers. But nonetheless, not caring for their relatives, they went to Krishna. There was certainly fear, but this fear could not check their devotional service to Krishna. One should not mistakenly think that Lord Krishna must be worshipped by an inimical attitude like that of Shishupal. The injunction is anukul yasya grahanam pratikul yasya varjanam. One should give up unfavorable activities and accept only favorable conditions in devotional service. Generally, if one blasphemes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is punished. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Tan aham dvishata kruran samsadeshu naradaman kshipam yajashram ashubhan asadishyeva yonishu. There are many such injunctions. One should not try to worship Krishna unfavorably, otherwise he must be punished, at least for one life, to be purified. As one should not try to be killed by embracing an enemy, a tiger or a snake, one should not blaspheme the Supreme Lord and become his enemy in order to be put into hellish life. The purpose of this verse is to emphasize that even the enemy of the Lord can be delivered, not to speak of his friend. Srila Madhvacharya also says in many ways that one should not blaspheme Lord Vishnu through one's mind, words, or actions, for a blasphemer will go to hellish life along with his forefathers. Karmana manasavacha yodvishyad vishnum avyayam majanti pitarastasya narake shashvati samaha. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Tan aham dvisha... Oh, didn't we just... I think we read that earlier. Tan aham dvishata krodan samsadeshu naradamam Shipam yajashram ashubhan asodisheva yonishu asodim yonim appana muda janmani janmani mama prapyaiva kunteya tato yantyadamam gatim. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life, attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demonic life. Such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. One who blasphemes the Lord is put into a family of asuras, in which there is every chance of forgetting the service of the Lord. Going very heavy today in our reading. Lord Krishna further states in Bhagavad Gita, Mudas, rascals, blaspheme the Supreme Lord because he appears exactly like a human being. They do not know the unlimited opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anything done by those who have taken the attitude of enemies will be baffled. If these enemies try to be liberated or to merge into the existence of Brahman, if they desire to be elevated to the higher planetary systems as karmis, or even if they desire to return home back to Godhead, they will certainly be baffled. As for Hiranyakashipu, although he was extremely inimical toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he always thought of his son, who was a great devotee. Therefore, by the grace of his son, Prahlād Maharaj, Hiranyakashipu was also delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The conclusion is that one should not give up pure devotional service. For one's own benefit, one should not imitate Hiranyakashipu or Shishupal. This is not the way to achieve success. But yes, this is being mentioned here by Srila Swami Maharaj. This is something that's very striking in the Leela of Prahlād Maharaj, that at the conclusion of the whole saga, right, Nrsingadev has killed Hiranyakashipu, and Nrsingadev asks Prahlād for some boon, right? He's so pleased by the devotion of his beloved devotee Prahlād, and so Nrsingadev wants to grant him some benediction. But Prahlād, he's not happy to hear that, and he says, one who is serving you and is expecting something in return, they are not your true devotee. They are like a businessman. But Nrsingadev insists, no, I really want to give you something. And Prahlād, he is such a merciful Vaishnava, he requests Nrsingadev to excuse his father. Right? Please forgive my father for for everything he has done. This is the magnanimous heart of the great devotees. Just as also, we can remember the example of Jesus, right? Gurudev liked to remember that, when Jesus was being crucified, right, on the cross, he made that prayer to the Lord, please forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. They know not what they do. It's a very nice contemplation. I mean, we cannot pretend to be on such a, advanced level of consciousness that we can so magnanimously forgive, those who have hurt us. We may not be at that level ourselves, but it is very nice to contemplate, right? Such a high plane of reality, such magnanimity, such mercy that it is in existence. It is very wholesome for us just to appreciate that and to appreciate those who have such magnanimity of heart. And so Prahlād Maharaj, he has this type of deep magnanimity. Okay. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, I find it a little challenging going through some of these sections, which are quite strong, right? In talk of hell and blasphemy and all these things. And but we can harmonize this for by understanding that this type of talk and instruction is for a particular class of people, right? It may not be relevant for us, but it is there for some purpose. For some persons, they respond to this type of language and this type of approach, and it is there for them. We can respect it. It may not be for us, but it is there for some reason. We can appreciate it in that way, because ultimately, for us, and in the practice of Krishna consciousness in general, we are trying to approach with the spirit of natural affection, right? And so while a large section of the Vedic religion and world religion as well as a whole, right, there's this aspect of do good because you'll be punished otherwise, that is relevant for a class of people. But for our little group, I would say it's not relevant, because we are trying to come from a position of affection and surrendered service. And so it is a different approach, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gives that really interesting explanation, right? That every action in this world is motivated by 4 different things, the lowest being fear, next level being gain or profit, next dharma, duty, and the highest motivation is love, right? And so there is that class of persons who can only be motivated by fear, right? And so there's a particular way to talk to such persons, right? So when we come across these types of, this type of language, you may think this is for a certain class of persons. It may not be relevant for myself, but it is there for some reason, right? Okay, we can go to verse 27, unless if anyone wants to share any thought or has a question at this point, please do speak. Okay, otherwise we can ask Suvasan.
It's good to harmonize, that what you just said. It's really, good to. No, I'm glad, you made it clear. Yeah, it is. Otherwise, it's, as you said, it's really, if you think it is for everyone, it's like it's heavy, isn't it? It's good to
Yes.
remember this also. Good to
Yes, and I think we were all kind of trained with a different mood, with Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, we've kind of, we've been presented with a different angle and approach, right? And so some, and and obviously um not to mean any criticism of Srila Prabhupada, not at all. And it's not only that this is Srila Prabhupada, but these statements are all over the scriptures, right? But we're fortunate
Yes.
that
Yeah.
Srila Govinda Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, they have shown another angle, right? And another approach. And so we are more accustomed to that, actually. And so can be a little disconcerting or surprising to see some of these statements, but they are there throughout the scriptures and they are there for some purpose, right? And so, so yeah, we have to harmonize, right? Because we don't want to criticize and we don't want to be discouraged, right? As I think you said, we don't want to be discouraged also. So, so yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that, Didi.
Yatha Vairan. Yeah, thank you. You very clear. Thanks. Yeah. यथा न वैरानुभन्देन मध्यस्थन् मयतां यात् न तथा भक्तियोगेन इति मे निश्चिता मति.
Narada Muni continued. So Narada is speaking in the midst of this grand assembly, right? The Rajasuya sacrifice, speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj and the grand assembly. By devotional service, one cannot achieve such intense absorption and thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as one can through enmity toward him. That is my opinion. That's quite an intriguing statement. Let's see what the purport says here. Sriman Narada Muni, the topmost pure devotee, praises Krishna's enemies like Shishupal because their minds are always completely absorbed in Krishna. Indeed, he thinks himself deficient in the inspiration of being feelingly absorbed in Krishna consciousness. This does not mean, however, that the enemies of Krishna are more elevated than Krishna's pure devotees. So is he saying, like Narada is saying, like, oh, the enemies of Krishna, they're more intense in their remembrance of Krishna than myself, like some type of humble expression, like with all of my efforts, my remembrance of the Lord is not as intense, as his enemy. Even his enemies are thinking more about him than me. Something like that. There's that one line, right? I think it's in one of the Gopinath songs, right, by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he's saying, like, even all the demons, they achieved Krishna. Even the demons, they had a better relationship with Krishna than me, and only I am left behind, right? I don't have anything. I don't have any connection. Even the demons, they have more connection. So some type of subjective statement, you can say. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also thinks of himself in such a humble way. Jagai madai hoite muise papishta, purisher kita hoite muise lagishta. I am a worse sinner than Jagai and Madai, and am even lower than the worms in the stool. A pure devotee always thinks himself more deficient than everyone else. If a devotee approaches Srimati Radharani to offer some service to Krishna, even Srimati Radharani thinks that the devotee is greater than she. Thus Narada Muni says that according to his opinion, the enemies of Krishna are better situated because they are fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna in terms of killing him, just as a very lusty man always thinks of women and their association. The essential point in this connection is that one should be fully absorbed in thoughts of Krishna 24 hours a day. There are many devotees in Raga Marg, which is exhibited in Vrindavan. Whether in Dasya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, or Madhurya Rasa, all the devotees of Krishna are always overwhelmed by thoughts of Krishna. When Krishna is away from Vrindavan, tending the cows in the forest, the gopis in the Madhurya Rasa are always absorbed in thoughts of how Krishna walks in the forest. The soles of his feet are so soft that the gopis would not dare keep his lotus feet on their soft breasts. Indeed, they consider their breasts a very hard place for the lotus feet of Krishna. Yet those lotus feet wander in the forest, which is full of thorny plants. The gopis are absorbed in such thoughts at home, although Krishna is away from them. Similarly, when Krishna plays with his young friends, Mother Jashoda is very much disturbed by thoughts that Krishna, because of always playing and not taking his food properly, must be getting weak. These are examples of the exalted ecstasy felt in Krishna's service as manifested in Vrindavan. This service is indirectly praised by Narada Muni in this verse. Especially for the conditioned soul, Narada Muni recommends that one somehow or other be absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, for that will save one from all the dangers of material existence. Full absorption in thought of Krishna is the highest platform of Bhakti Yoga. So we've come to 28, 29.
ईतः पेशस्कृता रुद्धः कुड्यायां तम् अनुस्मरन् संरम्भ भययोगेन विन्दते तत्स्वरूपताम् एवं कृष्णे भगवति माया मनुज ईश्वरे वैरेण भूतपाप्मानस्तम् आपुर् अनुचिन्तया.
A grassworm confined in a hole of a wall by a bee always thinks of the bee in fear and enmity, and later becomes a bee simply because of such remembrance. Similar, because there's that famous Bhagavad Gita verse, right? Saying whatever one is thinking of at the time of death, they will attain that in their next life, right? Similarly, if the conditioned souls somehow or other think of Krishna, who is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, they will become free from their sins. Whether thinking of him as their worshipable Lord or an enemy, because of constantly thinking of him, they will regain their spiritual bodies. Purport in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Vitaraga Vaya Kroda Manmaya Mamupashutaha Bahavo Gyanatapasa Putamam Bhavam Agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. There are two ways of constantly thinking of Krishna as a devotee and as an enemy. A devotee, of course, by his knowledge and tapasya, becomes free. Tapasya means, for those who, I think everybody knows, but in case you don't, tapasya is referring to austerities, right? So through knowledge and austerities, one becomes free from fear and anger and becomes a pure devotee. Similarly, an enemy, although thinking of Krishna animically, thinks of him constantly and also becomes purified. This is confirmed elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Api chaturacharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhur eva samantavya samyag vyavasito visaha. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he engages in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. A devotee undoubtedly worships the Lord with rapt attention. Similarly, if an enemy, Suduracha, always thinks of Krishna, he also becomes a purified devotee. The example given here concerns the grassworm that becomes bee-like because of constantly thinking of the bee that forces it to enter a hole. By always thinking of the bee in fear, the grassworm starts to become a bee. This is a practical example. Lord Krishna appears within this material world for two purposes: paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam, to protect the devotees and annihilate the demons. The sadhus and devotees certainly think of the Lord always, but dushkritis, the demons like Kamsa and Shishupal, also think of Krishna in terms of killing him. By thinking of Krishna, both the demons and devotees attain liberation from the clutches of material Maya. This verse uses the word Maya, Manuje. When Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears in his original spiritual potency, he is not forced to accept a form made by material nature. Therefore, the Lord is addressed as Ishvara, the controller of Maya. He is not controlled by Maya. When a demon continuously thinks of Krishna because of enmity toward him, he is certainly freed from the sinful reactions of his life. To think of Krishna in any way in terms of his name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, or anything pertaining to him is beneficial for everyone. Shinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana. It's a very beautiful verse in Bhagavatam. Thinking of Krishna, hearing the holy name of Krishna, or hearing the pastimes of Krishna will make one pure, and then he will become a devotee. Our Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to introduce the system of somehow or other letting everyone hear the holy name of Krishna and take Krishna's prasad. Thus one will gradually become a devotee and his life will be successful. Okay, going to verse 30.
Kamad dveshad bhayat snehad yatha bhakteshware manaha aveshatad agham hitva bhagavastad gatim gatha.
Many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feelings, fear, affection, or devotional service. I shall now explain how one receives Krishna's mercy simply by concentrating one's mind upon him. Purport, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is a well-known and important verse quoted by our gurus from the 10th canto. Vikritam Rajavadu Biridam Cha Vishnu Shradam Vito Nishunayada Tavarna Yedya Bhaktim Padam Bhagavati Pratilabhya Kamam Hridrogam Ashva Pahinotya Chirena Dira. If a bona fide listener hears of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, which seem to be lusty affairs, the lusty desires in his heart, which constitute the heart disease of the conditioned soul, will be vanquished, and he will become a most exalted devotee of the Lord. If one who hears of the gopis' lusty behavior with Krishna becomes free from lusty desires, certainly the gopis who approached Krishna became free from all such desires. Similarly, Shishupal and others who were very much envious of Krishna and who constantly thought of Krishna became free from envy. Nanda Maharaj and Mother Jashoda were fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness because of affection. When the mind is somehow or other fully absorbed in Krishna, the material part is very soon vanquished, and the spiritual part, attraction to Krishna, becomes manifest. This indirectly confirms that if one thinks of Krishna enviously, simply because of thinking of Krishna, he becomes free from all sinful reactions and thus becomes a pure devotee. Examples of this are given in the following verse. And, this is a very interesting point, an important point, right? And it's also demonstrating the what's the word? The, very holistic and inclusive nature of Vaishnavism, right? That it's not that you have to like compartmentalize your life, right? There's the spiritual part, there's the material part, but the idea is that, and that not that you have to dramatically change your life, right? Or change your nature, but rather that whatever nature you have, you try to dovetail, right? Often that word is used. We try to dovetail that with the service of Krishna. And there's one place, and then by making that offering, although there is a material aspect in the beginning, maybe primarily material, right? Our consciousness is material, our offering is material for the most part, because we are making that connection with the Lord, with the Supreme Center, then this purification takes place, right? And so the material aspect, as Srila Swami Maharaj has said to you very nicely, that material aspect will become cleared, right? And the spiritual aspect, that will become more predominant. There's one place where Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he gives a very nice explanation about this, and he says that, this is actually, he referred to it as the madhyam stage of our spiritual development, the middle stage of our spiritual development, because in the beginning of our spiritual journey, it may be that our lives are more compartmentalized, right? We go to like you go to church on Sunday, you go to the temple on Sunday, you have your time of the day when you do spiritual practice, and the rest of the time you do whatever you want, right? And so there's more this kind of like separation between your material life, your spiritual life, and and there are aspects of your life and times in your life, your daily life, when you're just not thinking about your spiritual culture at all, right? That's like in another box over there that happens once or twice a week, right? Or this time of the day. But then when you become more mature in your spiritual development, then the spiritual consideration will start to permeate every part of your life, right? So your social life, who your friends are, what your habits are, your hobbies are, those things will all start to be affected by spiritual considerations. Oh, this friend of mine is not supporting my spiritual goals, you know. So I have to rethink our friendship, right? Or no, I don't really want to go and drink at the bar on a Friday night, or down the pub or whatever it is, because that's not good for my spiritual advancement, right? My social life is going to be informed by my spiritual principles, right? So that this is like a more mature level of advancement, progress, practice. And then in another part of that is what's being described here, where we will want to start to give everything in in our offering to Krishna, right? So even our material nature, our material habits, our material possessions also, we want to connect everything, whatever it is that we have in us, we want to make that an offering, right? And it's kind of like we want it like, and that's actually a necessary part of our development. Like we need to throw everything in the fire. Everything has to come out, right? Like also Srila Sridhar Maharaj talks about that pastime of the Braja Gopis, right? When Krishna is teasing them and they end up having to come out naked. He like steals their clothes, right? And they end up having to come out of the river naked, right? And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj makes a commentary like we have to stand naked before Krishna ultimately, like there's some symbolism there that we also need to be able to stand naked before the Lord. There will be a point when we can't compartmentalize our lives, but we got to throw everything out. Like our Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj, he always liked to see what was in people's pockets, or in bags. Like if you'd walk past him with yeah, Rishabhanavi's mother probably has some stories about that. Like if you'd walk past him with a bag, he'd give you a look and you understood, no, he wants to know what's in the bag, and you'd have to like show him everything that you're carrying, and and I feel like there's also, he was doing, of course, it was like a playful thing, but I also feel that he had some deeper purpose behind that, right? Like we're trying to approach the Lord and the Guru and the Vaishnavas with that type of spirit. There's nothing to hide, right? We have to expose everything, whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, whether it's shameful or something that we're proud of, but we have to stand naked ultimately. So there comes that point in our progress where we need to be like that. And in order to be purified, everything has to be connected. And we have to be exposed. And so this is like a way of purification that, let's say, for example, we're very attached to money. Fine, make money and offer that money for the service of Krishna. Use that nature that you have, right? You like to have power. Okay, have power and use that power in the service of Krishna. And so this is a way of purification, right? That whatever that thing is, it's material, right? The attraction to money, it's a material thing. But because you're connecting that with Krishna, the most purifying force, then that will become purified and that will be elevated and it will turn into something else. And so, as Swami Maharaj mentioned, that the material aspect will be cleared, will be removed, will be purified, and the spiritual aspect will come out, right? And so it's actually a necessary part of our advancement that we, in one way or another, everything's getting exposed, everything's getting connected to the service of the Lord, to the devotees of the Lord also, right? And it's all coming out. And there may be some humiliation involved in that also. Even if it's only in front of ourselves, right? Having to see our own things coming out, but that's okay. That's a part of the cleansing process. And ultimately, all of those things will become cleared, by the purifying force of connection with Hari, Guru, and Vaishnava. So it is all beautiful, it is all good in the end. But as Gurudev Srila Govinda Maharaj says, that line, we must tolerate the speed of our journey. We must tolerate the speed of our journey. Sometimes we have to hold on for dear life, and the going will get rough at times, but we have to hold on, bear it out, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And as we're hearing today, right, how magnanimous, how merciful is the Lord, how kind is the Lord. So we only have to keep going. And one way or another, continue with our offerings and our service. Even if all we can offer is some mud pie, we will offer our mud pie. And the Lord will mercifully accept that. That is all that we have, We have to offer whatever we have, So if all we have is mud pie, we have to offer our mud pie. He doesn't need our mud pie, but he is accepting our intention and our effort, our endeavor to approach him. He is accepting that happily. And by the grace of our guardians, our divine guardians, one day that mud pie will be transformed into a chocolate cake with cherries on top. Okay, well, thank you all for your good company. I'm happy we can continue going through this together. And Suvasini, Didi, anything you'd like to add before we close for today?
Oh, thank you, Vishaka. That was very beautiful. That's what you said. Yeah, that's we have to somehow connect with the Lord. It's whatever we have, so many not desirable qualities or whatever it is. It's simply by the connection that it's like he said, the demons, just by thinking of Krishna, they become free from sinful reactions and becomes devotees. That's a very, whatever you elaborated on that, it is very, very beautiful. Also thinking it is similar to like chanting, we chant with offenses, right? With this, but we have to still keep chanting, because Gurudev also said, by by our sincere endeavor, the Harinam Prabhu, he will purify us with of our offenses, right? We can't chant without offenses, but we still keep doing it, and he will help us to remove those offenses, right? So it is similar to that also, isn't it? And so,
Yes, through
yeah,
the connection, as you said. Yeah, that is the main point. Yeah. Thank you, Didi.
yeah, thank you so much. Jai, Shaka Didi, Jai.
Does anyone else want to add any last words, reflections before we close for today? Okay, we'll end there.
I was struck by when you said how the gopis came out of the river and we have to stand and naked in front of Krishna, in front of God, and how that is like uncomfortable, how that is difficult, how that is. I don't even know what you said, but you said something even for ourselves, like standing in front of ourselves naked. How that was really hitting me. I don't even know what words you used, but I think that's that moved into my heart. Like even what I try to actually avoid in myself is so important to step into it and in front of myself deal with that with myself. That was so good. What did you say? You said it so simple. I can't even find it.
It has been recorded, so we can
Okay.
check it later. Yeah. I don't
I
remember
think
what my exact words were, but
so true, even in front of ourselves.
yeah. But it's also okay that, we may, let that be a gradual process too, right? Like we may just take a peep at the can of worms and then say, okay, maybe next time, like or say, yeah, or just like knowing that it's there, but that can also be, helpful. And Gurudev, you please take care of this, like I can't handle it on my own. Uh, oh, well, thank you for sharing that reflection, Gangli. And I'm glad it's something touched your heart there. That I'm very happy.
Always, always. Vishaka Didi ki jai.
Jai Shri Gurudev, Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Dakshina Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai, Shri A.C.
Jai.
Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai, all the assembled
Jai.
devotees ki Jai, Jai
Jai.
Sri Didi ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Jai
Jai.
Gaur Premanande. Haribo.
Haribol.
See you all next time.
Thank you. Jai, Shaka Didi, Jai.
Jai Gurudev.